When humanity abandoned the Galactic Council, everything changed. Part 1. The air inside the Viridia Prime chamber was still, cold, and heavy with silence. Delegates from 23 species sat in their assigned seats, each surrounded by soft light and personal force fields. At the center of the room, standing alone without guards or aides, was Nathan Cole. He wore a simple gray suit, no medals, no insignia, just a man representing a species that had once hoped to belong among the stars. Nathan took a slow breath. His voice, when it came, was calm but firm. Effective immediately, Earth and all its colonies withdraw from the Galactic Council. A ripple moved through the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward. Others stiffened. Ambassador Vex of the Xanthari narrowed his silver eyes but said nothing. For 50 years, humanity had tried to be part of the Council. They followed the rules, paid their dues, and sent their best minds to joint science missions. But every time Earth asked for equal say in defense matters or trade routes, the answer was the same. You are new. Wait your turn. That turn never came. During the Krell border wars, when human outposts were burning and children were vanishing into slave markets, the Council called it a regional conflict and refused to intervene. That was the final straw. Nathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. We came in good faith. We were met with silence, then suspicion, then control. We will no longer lend our ships, our scientists, or our soldiers to a body that sees us as junior partners at best, and a threat at worst. He placed a data chip on the central podium. This contains our formal notice of withdrawal, signed by the Unified Earth Assembly. May your stars shine bright without us. He turned and walked out. No one followed. No one clapped. But as the chamber doors sealed behind him, a low hum of chatter rose, some angry, some worried, a few almost relieved. Far from Viridia Prime, on the quiet lunar outpost Selene 7, Leah Dawson stared at her screen with tired eyes. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago. She rubbed her temples and zoomed in on the latest anomaly. Deep in the Oort cloud beyond Neptune's orbit, something was pulsing. Not randomly. In patterns. Every 73.4 minutes, a burst of tachyon energy flared. Too clean, too precise to be natural. She'd flagged it 3 days ago. Sent the report to Central Science Command on Mars. Their reply came back in under an hour. Likely sensor ghosting. Recalibrate and recheck. But Leah knew her instruments. She'd built half of them herself. This was real, and it wasn't Xanthari. It wasn't Krell. It wasn't any known species. She pulled up old archives, cross-referencing frequencies and modulation types. Nothing matched. Then, on a whim, she compared it to pre-first contact human deep space experiments. Projects buried so deep they were labeled myth in official records. One file, heavily redacted, showed similar waveforms from a failed 22nd century probe called Odyssey 9. The project was shut down after budget reallocation, but the signal, it was almost identical. Leah hesitated, then encrypted the data and sent it to one person she still trusted, Owen Briggs. He'd been fleet commander during the Krell Wars, retired after refusing a direct order to bomb a civilian refugee convoy. Now he lived alone in a dome on the Martian plains, fixing old rovers and growing potatoes in red soil. If anyone would listen, it was him. On Mars, Owen was elbow-deep in a rusted coolant pump when his private comms unit blinked red. He wiped his hands on his trousers and opened the message. He read Leah's notes twice. Then he sat very still, staring out the dome window at the endless rust-colored horizon. He remembered Odyssey 9. Not from public records, from whispers in Black Ops briefings. It wasn't just a probe. It was part of something bigger, something classified even to admirals. And if that signal was real, then humanity hadn't just been left behind by the galaxy, they'd been erased. Back on Earth, the news of the withdrawal spread like wildfire. Crowds gathered in city squares from New Delhi to Buenos Aires. Some cheered. Others wept. Governments scrambled. EarthGov issued a statement urging calm. But military ships began pulling out of joint bases across the Orion Arm. Human freighters rerouted. Scientists packed up labs on Council-owned stations. But not everyone was celebrating. In the shadows, Council-aligned agents moved quickly. 3 human cargo haulers vanished near the Cygnus corridor within 48 hours. Official reports blamed pirates. But the ship's last signals showed no distress calls, just sudden silence. And the wreckage, when found, had clean cuts through the hulls. No plasma burns. No shrapnel. Like something had sliced them open with surgical precision. Nathan knew what it meant. He'd seen those marks before during covert ops training. Council black units used monomolecular blades for silent takedowns. This wasn't piracy. It was a message. He tried to warn EarthGov, but his access had been revoked. They called him reckless, a liability. By dawn, security officers arrived at his apartment with soft cuffs and a sealed order. House arrest for endangering interstellar stability. Alone in his dim living room, Nathan watched the stars through the window. Earth's night sky was still beautiful, unchanged by politics or war. He thought of his niece, who wanted to be an astrophysicist. He thought of the farmers on Titan, the miners on Ceres, the kids playing in domes on Mars, all of them now cut off from the galaxy they'd helped build. Then his old emergency comms band buzzed, a channel no one else knew about. A single line appeared. They didn't abandon us. We were never meant to stay. The message was unsigned, but Nathan knew Owen's style. He read it again, and again. A cold certainty settled in his chest. This wasn't just about trade or treaties. Something deeper was waking up. On Selene 7, Leah received a reply from Owen. Keep digging. Don't trust official channels. I'm coming to you. She smiled for the first time in days. High above Earth, Council warships gathered at the edge of the Sol system. Their hulls gleamed in the sunlight, silent and patient. Ambassador Vex stood on the bridge of the flagship Xanthara's Will, watching the blue planet turn below. Isolation invites vulnerability, he murmured to no one in particular. But down on Earth, in hidden labs and quiet outposts, humans were already moving. Not in fear, but in quiet preparation. Because when you stop asking for a seat at someone else's table, you start building your own. And sometimes the oldest truths are the ones everyone forgot to look for. Nathan sat by the window of his apartment, the city lights below blurred by rain on the glass. House arrest meant no comms, no visitors, no access to official networks. But it didn't stop him from thinking. Owen's message played over and over in his mind. They didn't abandon us. We were never meant to stay. It made no sense at first, but the more he turned it over, the more it felt like a key turning in a rusted lock. He remembered old stories his grandfather used to tell, tales of human ships that vanished before first contact, of signals from deep space that were never explained, of ruins on Mars that predated known colonies. Back then he'd thought they were just myths. Now he wasn't so sure. Meanwhile, on Titan, Leah Dawson worked in a bunker buried under 3 kilometers of ice. EarthGov had moved her there after her report on the Oort cloud signal raised too many questions. Officially, she was on sabbatical. Unofficially, she was being watched. But her new lab had better equipment, and no one bothered to check what she was really analyzing. She'd matched the signal's rhythm to a forgotten human encryption method used in early deep space missions. Buried inside the pulses was data, not just coordinates but star charts. And one location kept repeating. A quiet zone near Proxima Centauri b, marked with a symbol she'd never seen before, a spiral wrapped around a flame. She ran simulations. The energy signature wasn't just a beacon, it was a call. And it was getting stronger. On Mars, Owen Briggs packed a duffel bag with rations, tools, and a single photo of his old crew. He hadn't worn a uniform in years, but tonight, he pulled on a faded flight jacket with no patches. He walked to the edge of his dome and whistled. A moment later, a dusty rover rolled up, its AI chirping softly. "You coming or not?" he asked it. The rover beeped in reply. He drove through the night to a hidden hangar outside the old Tharsis shipyards. Inside waited the Aurora's Reach, a retired survey vessel most thought had been scrapped. Owen had spent the last 2 years quietly restoring her in secret. She wasn't fast and her shields were weak, but she could jump. He needed a crew, not soldiers, people who asked questions and didn't flinch at silence. He sent coded messages to 3 names he hadn't contacted in years. Maya Ruiz answered first. She'd been the best pilot in the Outer Rim fleet before she quit over ethical disagreements. Now she ran cargo runs between asteroid belts, flying under fake IDs. She arrived at the hangar in a beat-up shuttle, boots scuffed, eyes sharp. "You're either crazy or right," she said. "Either way, I'm in." Next came Derek Shaw, a wiry engineer who could fix a fusion core with duct tape and hope. He showed up with a toolbox and a thermos of coffee. "If we're stealing a ship," he said, "I want to be the one who keeps it from exploding." Last was Felix Grant, a xenolinguist who'd spent 10 years decoding dead alien dialects. He'd been fired from the Council archives for unauthorized reinterpretation of ancient texts. He arrived with a satchel full of notebooks and a calm smile. "I've been waiting for someone to ask the right question," he said. They boarded the Aurora's Reach under cover of a solar storm. Earth's orbital sensors were blinded for 6 hours. That was all they needed. Maya fired up the engines and the ship lifted off, silent and smooth. Within minutes, they were past the moon, then past Mars, then folding space with a shudder that rattled teeth. No one noticed. No one was looking for a ghost ship. 3 days later, they dropped out of fold space near Proxima Centauri b. The planet was quiet, its red sun casting long shadows. But there, in a stable orbit just beyond the habitable zone, hung something that shouldn't exist. It was a station, human-made, smooth curves, modular design, powered by fusion rings that still glowed faintly blue. No transponder, no signal, just waiting. "Scan shows no life signs," Maya said, her hand steady on the controls. "But power's active in the core." Owen nodded. Then someone or something left the lights on. They docked carefully. The airlock hissed open to reveal a corridor lined with dormant panels. The walls were marked with the same spiral and flame symbol Leah had found. Felix ran his fingers over it. "This isn't just a logo," he whispered. "It's a name, or a promise." Inside, the station was clean, cold, and eerily preserved. No dust, no decay, like time had paused. Derek found the main power node and jacked in a portable battery. Lights flickered on. Screens woke up. And in the central chamber, a single console glowed softly. Owen approached it. A voice spoke, not from speakers but from the air itself. Calm, female, ancient. "Welcome back, child of Earth." They froze. The AI introduced itself as Eos. It had been sleeping for over 300 years, waiting for a human genetic signature to return. As it spoke, images filled the chamber. Star maps, schematics, logs. Humanity hadn't just joined the galaxy late. They'd been here first. Long before the Zenthari or the Krell had built their first cities, humans had launched sleeper ships into the void. They built outposts, seeded worlds, and left behind guardians like Eos to watch over them. But something went wrong. Records were lost. Wars broke out. And when the Council rose, they found a fractured, confused humanity, easy to control. "The Council didn't find you," Eos said. "They buried you." Leah, watching the live feed from Titan through a smuggled relay, gasped. She cross-referenced Eos's data with Earth's oldest archives. Buried deep in military black files were references to Project Icarus, a plan to scatter humanity across the galaxy so no single disaster could wipe them out. The project was scrubbed from history after first contact. The Council called it primitive myth-making, but it was real. Back on the station, Felix found a hidden vault. Inside lay a device the size of a suitcase, humming with soft light. The Helios core, a prototype drive that didn't need jump gates or Council-approved routes. It bent space using quantum echoes, something the Council had declared theoretically impossible. Derek's eyes lit up. With this, we could go anywhere, undetected. But as he reached for it, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. Maya's voice crackled over the comms. Zenthari scouts just dropped out of fold space. 2 frigates. "They're scanning us," Owen cursed. "How did they find us?" Leah's voice came through, strained. "Your jump signature. The Helios core emits a unique resonance. The Council must have sensors tuned to it. They had minutes, maybe less." "Grab the core," Owen ordered. "We're leaving." They ran. Derek carried the device, Felix grabbed data crystals, Maya prepped the ship. As they sprinted down the corridor, the station shook. The Zenthari were firing warning shots, testing, not destroying. They wanted the station intact. On the Aurora's Reach, Maya powered up the engines. "We can't jump yet. The core needs to sync with our nav system." "We don't have time," Owen said. Derek looked at the engine readouts, then at the core. "I can hardwire it, but it'll overload the main reactor on exit. 1 jump. Then we're dead in space." "Do it," Owen said. Derek worked fast, sweat on his brow. Wires sparked. Alarms screamed. Outside, the Zenthari ships moved closer. The moment the core synced, Maya punched the jump command. The Aurora's reach shuddered violently. Lights died, oxygen hissed. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then space folded. They emerged near Alpha Centauri, tumbling. The engines were dead. Life support flickered. But they were alive. Derek didn't move. He slumped over the console, his hand still on the core. His breathing was shallow. "Told you. It'd work," he whispered. Maya checked his pulse. Then she closed his eyes gently. Silence filled the cabin. Back on Earth, news of the Zenthari aggression leaked. A civilian news drone had caught the frigates near Proxima. Footage spread fast. People saw human ships being hunted just for exploring. Anger turned to fury. Nathan, still under house arrest, watched the broadcast through a smuggled tablet. He saw the symbol, the spiral and flame, flashed by protesters in the streets. Someone had started using it as a sign of resistance. He knew then that this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about memory, truth, who they really were. And far away, in the dark between stars, Owen looked at the Helios core glowing softly in the dim light. It wasn't just a machine. It was a key, and humanity had just turned it. The Aurora's reach drifted in the silent dark near Alpha Centauri, its hull cold, its engines dead. Inside, Owen sat alone in the dim cockpit, staring at the Helios core resting on the navigation console. It pulsed with a soft blue light, steady as a heartbeat. Derek's body had been wrapped in thermal cloth and placed in the cargo hold. There would be time to mourn later. Right now they had to move. Maya worked in the engine room, trying to reroute power from the backup cells. Felix studied the data crystals they'd taken from the Proxima station, his eyes wide behind cracked glasses. "This isn't just history," he said, voice low. "It's a map. Hundreds of locations, all marked with the spiral and flame symbol. Some are outposts, others are shipyards, and a few are weapons depots." Owen didn't answer. He was thinking about Earth, about Nathan, about the millions who didn't know they were living a lie. The Council hadn't just ignored humanity, they had erased them. And now, with the Helios core in their hands, humans had a chance to remember who they really were. Leah, still hidden under Titan's ice, had been working nonstop, using EOS's data and fragments from the crystals Felix sent. She pieced together the truth. Project Icarus wasn't just about survival. It was about legacy. Ancient humans, centuries before first contact, had built a network across the galaxy. They knew civilizations rose and fell, so they left behind seeds, ships, knowledge, defenses, all waiting for the day their descendants would need them. But the Council found those seeds first, and instead of sharing them, they buried them. Called them myths, called humanity primitive for even believing in them. Now the truth was waking up. Owen made a decision. "We're not going back to Earth," he said. "Not yet. We need to find one of those shipyards, a place where we can wake up what was left behind." Felix pointed to a star cluster in the Carina Nebula. "There's one here. Designation, Icarus 7. It's listed as high priority dormant. No Council activity in that sector for over 200 years. Maya wiped grease from her hands. "If the core can get us there, I can fly us in blind. But we'll need air, food, and a miracle." "We've got 2 out of 3, Owen said. They spent 2 days jury-rigging the ship. Maya patched the life support with parts from the cargo bay. Felix decoded the core's interface so it could link to their nav system without frying the whole vessel. Owen checked weapons, just 2 pulse rifles and a handful of charges. Not much against a warship, but enough for a surprise. Then, with a deep breath, Maya activated the Helios core. Space bent around them like fabric. No jump gates, no alarms, just silence and speed. They arrived at the edge of the Carina Nebula 3 hours later. Dust clouds swirled in hues of red and gold. Hidden within them, orbiting a dead star, was Icarus 7. It wasn't a station. It was a city in space. Hundreds of ships hung in perfect formation, frozen in time. Sleek destroyers, heavy cruisers, carriers with folded wings. All human, all untouched. Their hulls bore the spiral and flame symbol, faded but proud. "The silent fleet," Felix whispered. Owen's throat tightened. These weren't just ships. They were guardians, built to protect humanity when the galaxy turned against them. And now they were waiting. They docked with the central command hub. Inside, another AI stirred, older than EOS, deeper in tone. It called itself Kronos. It recognized Owen's DNA as part of the Icarus bloodline. a genetic marker embedded in early colonists to ensure only true descendants could awaken the fleet. "You have returned," Kronos said. "The cycle begins again." Over the next day, they activated the primary systems. Lights returned to the fleet. Reactors hummed to life. Shields flickered online. The ships weren't just functional, they were ready. But as they worked, a warning flashed on the main screen. Council sensors had detected the energy surge. A Xanthari battle group was en route. "Estimated arrival 12 hours. "They know," Maya said. "Then we don't have 12 hours, Owen replied. "We have one." He climbed aboard the lead ship, the Daedalus. Its bridge was clean, its controls responsive. Kronos uploaded the fleet's command protocols directly into his neural implant. He could feel the ships like extensions of his own body. Back on Earth, things were falling apart. The Council had declared humanity a rogue species and moved warships to the edge of the Sol system. EarthGov was divided. Some wanted to surrender. Others wanted to fight. Nathan, still under house arrest, managed to leak EOS's full archive to every public network. The truth spread like fire. People saw footage of ancient human cities on dead moons. They read logs from ships that sailed the stars long before the Council existed. They learned their history had been stolen. Protests turned into uprisings. Soldiers refused orders to stand down. Scientists shared forbidden data. Even some non-human traders, tired of Council rule, began smuggling supplies to human colonies. Nathan was freed by a group of junior officers who believed in the truth. He stood on a rooftop in Geneva, watching as human ships, old, patched, but proud, formed a defensive line near Luna. They were outgunned, outnumbered, but they weren't alone anymore. In the Carina Nebula, Owen gave the final command. One by one, the silent fleet powered up. Engines glowed. Weapons charged. The Daedalus led the way as they folded space toward Sol. They arrived not with a roar, but with silence. One moment, the Sol system was tense, waiting for the Council's attack. The next, hundreds of massive human warships appeared above the Moon, Mars, and Titan. No warning. No demands. Just presence. The Xanthari fleet froze. Their scanners couldn't understand what they were seeing. These ships used no known tech. Their shields absorbed energy instead of deflecting it. Their weapons fired beams that phased through armor like ghosts. Owen opened a channel, not to the Council, but to every human colony, every listening ear in the galaxy. "This is Commander Owen Briggs of the Icarus fleet. We are not invaders. We are heirs, and we are taking back what was ours." On the Xanthari flagship, Ambassador Vex watched the display in stunned silence. He'd spent his life believing humanity was young, naive, late to the stars. Now he saw the truth. They had been here first, and they had been sleeping. He turned to his captain. "Hold position. Do not fire." But the Council High Command didn't care. From their fortress in the Orion Core, they sent one order: annihilate the human fleet. Erase their legacy completely. Owen knew it was coming. He gave a single command to his ships: disable, don't destroy. Target command hubs and comms. Leave the crews alive. The battle began not with explosions, but with silence. Human ships moved like shadows, slipping past shields, cutting power, locking weapons. Within minutes, half the Xanthari fleet was dark, drifting, helpless. On Earth, people watched in awe. Children pointed to the sky. Old veterans wept. Leah, now broadcasting from Titan, showed the galaxy the full truth: genetic records, star charts, proof that the Council had rewritten history to keep others weak. And in the middle of it all, Owen stood on the bridge of the Daedalus, looking at Earth on the view screen, blue, fragile, free. The war wasn't over. But the lie was. The silent fleet hung above Earth like a shield of old steel and new hope. No shots had been fired in anger, not by humans at least. The Xanthari ships drifted, dark and silent, their crews alive but locked out of their own systems. It was a message, not a massacre, and the galaxy was listening. On the bridge of the Daedalus, Owen watched the stars. His hands rested on the command console, but his mind was far away, back in the red dust of Mars, back in the quiet, before everything changed. He hadn't wanted to be a leader. He just wanted the truth to be known. Now the truth was echoing across 1,000 worlds. Down on Earth, Nathan stood in a makeshift command center in Geneva. Screens showed live feeds from every human colony. On Titan, Leah coordinated data streams, broadcasting Council secrets to anyone who would listen. On Mars, engineers worked around the clock to retrofit old freighters with Icarus-level tech leaked from the fleet. Even the Belt colonies, long ignored, sent messages of support. For the first time in generations, humanity felt whole, but the real storm was coming from the Orion core. The Council High Command had declared Owen Briggs a terrorist. They labeled the silent fleet stolen technology and demanded its immediate surrender. When no reply came, they did what they always did. They sent more ships. Not just Centauri this time. Krell cruisers, Veln warframes, dozens of vessels from species who had never questioned the Council before. Yet something had shifted. As the new fleet gathered at the edge of Sol space, 3 Krell captains broke formation. They powered down weapons and opened a public channel. "We do not fight for lies," one said. Then they turned and left. More followed. A Veln science vessel broadcast its own archives, proof that their people too had been rewritten, their history trimmed to fit the Council's story. One by one, species that had lived under the Council's shadow began to speak. Not in anger, but in grief. They had all been lied to. Ambassador Vex watched from his disabled flagship. He requested a private channel to Owen. It was granted. "You knew," Vex said, his voice tired. "All this time, you knew what we were." "We didn't," Owen replied. "Not until recently. But now that we do, we won't let you bury anyone else." Vex was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I will testify to everything." Back on the Daedalus, Maya and Felix worked with Kronos to unlock the final layer of Project Icarus. Buried deep in the fleet's core memory was a protocol called Legacy Reclamation. It wasn't just about ships or weapons. It was about restoring what had been lost. Libraries of knowledge, genetic banks, cultural archives hidden in dead stars and frozen moons. One file stood out: the Helios Network. A web of relay stations built before the Council existed, designed to connect all human outposts without relying on central control. If reactivated, it would let humanity communicate freely across the galaxy. No more censorship, no more filters. Leah found the master key in EOS's data, a harmonic frequency tied to Earth's own magnetic field. She sent the code to Owen. He entered it into the Daedalus console. Across the galaxy, ancient relays flickered to life. On a dead moon near Sirius, a tower lit up. In the rings of a gas giant in Andromeda's arm, a node hummed. The Helios network was awake. Now every human, on Earth, on Titan, on distant colonies, could speak to each other directly. No Council oversight, no delays, just voices clear and true. The Council panicked. They jammed known frequencies, but the Helios signal slipped through like ghosts. They couldn't stop it. The truth was already spreading faster than their lies ever had. Then came the final blow. Leah uncovered a recording from the earliest days of the Council. It showed human delegates, real ones from the 22nd century, offering peace, sharing technology, asking only for partnership. The Council founders, then just a small alliance of 3 species, smiled and shook hands. But in private logs, they called humans too dangerous and too creative, too likely to remember. They decided then to erase human history, to make them start from scratch, to keep them small. The recording went live. Even species loyal to the Council began to doubt. Protests erupted on Centauri homeworlds. Krell youth tore down Council banners. The unity the Council had spent centuries building began to crack from within. Owen knew this was their moment. He didn't order an attack. Instead, he opened every channel and spoke to the galaxy. "We are not here to replace the Council. We are here to end the lie. Join us not as subjects but as equals. Build something new, with truth at its heart." Nathan echoed the call from Earth. Leah shared access codes to the Helios network with every species that asked. Maya piloted a shuttle to the drifting Centauri ships, offering aid, not weapons. Slowly, carefully, trust began to grow. But the Council High Command would not surrender. From their fortress, a massive station called the Spire, they launched their final weapon, a gravity lance capable of tearing planets apart. Its first target, Earth. Owen saw the energy build up on his scanners. He didn't hesitate. All ships form shield wall around Sol. Kronos, activate the phase barrier. The silent fleet moved as one. They linked their shields not to block, but to bend. As the gravity lance fired, the fleet redirected its force into deep space where it dissipated harmlessly among dead stars. The spire had used its last card and failed. Inside the fortress, chaos erupted. Lower-ranking officers refused orders. Systems shut down. The council was collapsing from the inside out. Ambassador Vex, now aboard a human medical frigate, sent one final message to his people. We were wrong. It is time to listen. On Earth, people gathered in the streets not in fear but in quiet awe. They looked up and saw human ships not as tools of war but as guardians returning home. Owen stood alone on the bridge again. The battle was over. The real work was just beginning. And somewhere in the dark, the stars watched, waiting to see what humanity would do next. Peace did not come with a treaty or a grand ceremony. It came quietly like morning light after a long night. The council was gone, not destroyed but undone. Its leaders had vanished into hiding, its fleet scattered or surrendered. In its place rose something new, something fragile, the covenant of equals. Not ruled by one species, not built on secrets, but held together by shared truth and open channels. Nathan Cole stood at its first gathering, not as a diplomat but as a witness. He spoke only once. We don't need to be in charge, he said. We just need to be honest. Leah Dawson became the Covenant's first archivist. From her station on Titan, she oversaw the restoration of lost histories. Not just human, but Krell, Veln, Zinthari, and dozens of others. Buried records surfaced from forgotten vaults. Ancient songs were played again. Children learned that their ancestors had once sailed the stars long before the council told them they couldn't. Leah made sure no story was erased again. She worked late into the night, not out of duty, but because she finally felt like she belonged to something real. On Earth, cities began to heal. The fear that had gripped the planet for decades, the fear of being small, of being late, of not mattering, slowly faded. People planted gardens on rooftops. Artists painted murals of the silent fleet. Schools taught the true history of humanity, not the version the council had allowed. In Chicago, Maya Ruiz walked through a quiet park one evening. She knelt and planted a young oak sapling near a bench. A little girl watched her. "Why are you doing that?" she asked. Maya smiled. "Because someone has to believe the future is worth growing into." Owen Briggs did not stay for the celebrations. He stood on the bridge of the Daedalus one last time, looking at Earth through the viewport. It was whole, safe, free, that was enough. He declined every offer of rank, every seat at the new tables of power. "I'm not a politician," he told Nathan over a private channel. "I'm a sailor, and there are still stars that haven't heard the truth." He gathered a small crew, volunteers who wanted to explore, not conquer. They loaded the Daedalus with supplies, data crystals, and seeds from Earth's oldest trees. Their mission was simple: find the remaining Icarus outposts, wake them if they slept, protect them if they were threatened, and share their knowledge with anyone who asked. No secrets, no control, just connection. As the Daedalus lifted from lunar orbit, thousands watched from the surface. Not with fear, but with hope. Owen didn't look back. He set a course for the outer spiral, where the oldest signals still whispered. The silent fleet remained, not as weapons, but as guardians. Some ships stayed near Earth. Others patrolled trade lanes, helping colonies rebuild. A few, like the Aurora's Reach, now repaired and renamed Derek's Light, carried aid to worlds that had suffered under the old order. The fleet was no longer silent. It spoke in acts of kindness, in open comms, in shared starlight. Ambassador Vex lived out his days on a quiet island on Earth, teaching history at a small university. He never asked for forgiveness. He simply tried every day to be better than the system he once served. Students called him Professor Vex, and he liked that more than any title he'd held before. The Helios network grew. New relays were built, not just by humans, but by Krell engineers, Veln artisans, and Zinthari coders. Messages flowed freely across the galaxy. A child on a dusty moon could talk to a poet in Andromeda. A farmer on Mars could share crop tips with a botanist on a water world. The galaxy was no longer divided by who knew what. It was united by who was willing to listen. Nathan visited Leah on Titan once a month. They'd sit in her garden under the dome, drinking tea and watching Saturn rise. They never talked about war. They talked about what came after. "Do you think we did the right thing?" he asked her once. She looked at the stars through the glass. "We didn't do it for right or wrong," she said. "We did it because it was true, and truth doesn't need permission to exist." Years passed. The scars of the past didn't vanish, but they faded into stories told to remind, not to wound. New ships launched, not for conquest, but for curiosity. Young pilots dreamed not of battles, but of first contact with worlds that had hidden for centuries. Scientists worked together across species lines, solving problems no one could have solved alone. And far out in the dark, the Daedalus found another Icarus outpost, this one orbiting a blue-white star no one had mapped. Inside they found more than machines. They found art, music, letters from people who had lived and loved and hoped long ago. Owen recorded it all and sent it home through the Helios network. "We're not alone in our past," he said in his log. "And we don't have to be alone in our future." Back on Earth, the oak tree Maya planted grew tall. Its leaves turned gold in the fall, green in the spring. People sat under it to read, to talk, to dream. No one marked it as special. It was just a tree, but it stood as a quiet promise that even after the storms, life goes on. And in the night sky, human and alien ships passed side by side, not as enemies, not as rulers, but as neighbors under the same endless stars.